Greetings, Fullerton College High School Theater Festival. My name is Jersten Seraile. I would like to welcome you all to my classical theater workshop. A little about me. I am a full-time faculty at the University of San Diego, where I serve as postdoctoral theater faculty, and I'm an adjunct lecturer at Fullerton College in acting. I'm very excited to be a part of this festival, and I'm very grateful for the coordination team with Fullerton College High School for having me. So I'm really excited about this classical theater workshop, and we're going to get into a couple things. And I'm really passionate about this subject because I believe representation matters. I believe in the human experience, and I believe everyone is capable of truth. And ultimately, what this workshop is about, bringing your truth, your experiences to the work, no matter what work you're approaching. Now, what is considered classic in high art, that's of course, up for debate right now. There's a lot happening in the world. And in my teaching, I don't like to ignore the present. I believe we should be working and learning with an eye on service, with an eye on how to serve the present causes, how to, add our voices to the communities. And I believe this work can help us find clarity with our own voices. And that, if you really think about that, classical work, it truly helps you to find clarity with self-expression, with expressing your ideas, saying what you want to say and knowing how to articulate exactly how you mean to say it. That is a revelation I've experienced in my own journey with this kind of work. And I'm really excited to dive into this work with you today. And I really believe it'll serve you in helping you to find clarity, in helping you to have a sense of direction in terms of where you want to go and what you want to do. So I'm really excited to dive into the fundamentals of what it takes to take on classical work and really bring yourself, your authentic self, to work that might seem a little far away. Okay, so before we dive in, part of my class, what I believe in giving business advice, at the top of every class. So, it's important, yes, to know how to do a job, but how do you get a job? And coming out of high school, leaving college, there's a lot of navigating, the world. And so, in your training, I love to give business advice so you can sort of have a sense of direction as you start to enter into real communities and dealing with the real issues coming your way. So my business advice is to find a community, pick a community, and find a way to serve in that community. Find a way to serve. Dr. King, he once said in his speech, the drum major instinct, if you want to be great, wonderful, but you have to find a way to serve. Anyone can serve. Anyone can be a servant. So if you find a way to serve, then greatness will follow. And I believe that. I believe that we are going into real communities, dealing with real people who may not understand the fancy terms in our toolbox we're going to learn today. But we have to figure out how to serve those communities, use your gift and your talents to serve. So I want to leave you with that. Okay, so now I want to turn to the basic principles of acting, because it's important, no matter whether it's classical work, contemporary, it doesn't matter. There's always those foundational principles, the foundation. This kind of work, it's like playing sports. You have to condition your body, right? So with this work, we have to condition ourselves to understand, the foundation to the game. And once we learn to appreciate it, we don't cheat it. I think we can really move forward in navigating this classical work and really bringing ourselves, to this work. So really quickly, I want to go over some of these terms. Now, I know some of you may have heard of these. For some of you, it may be new. But regardless, wherever you're at, we're not going to take it for granted. So let's go over it, as we're preparing a monologue, we'll go over these terms. So I'm going to share my screen right now. Sorry, one bit. Okay, so I have these character development techniques. These are the foundational skills. You're gonna always hear these for the rest of your journey. The key is not to take them for granted. So that's why I wanna start with them. So first, I wanna talk about objective. What is an objective? In life, we all have a want, we all have a desire to go after something. And, that desire is something that's going to help us reach a further goal down the road. So to read the definition here, I have an objective is a goal or solution that is needed in order to eventually obtain the super objective. An objective is needed in the present moment and can only be obtained from the other person, so your scene partner. Now, here's the trick. Some of you may have monologues in preparation for college or in preparation for industry audition. You still have a scene partner and you still have an objective. So you want something, and that creates a need, sort of a burning fire, because that person can give it to you. Now it's up to that person to actually give it to you. So let's go further down this road. A character's objective can be written on the script by the actor during rehearsal as the following: I want blank. So we want to keep it simple, 3 words even. I want blank, like just to make it so obvious. I want love. I want revenge. I want money. Be sure to keep the personal objective as simple but concise as possible. And remember that as an actor, it is your job to search for conflict. Your objective will very rarely be safe or easy to ask for from your scene partner. Lean on the side of conflict. So when you're looking for your objective in this monologue, in this scene, just know it's not something that is easy to obtain. Often there is some conflict. That's what creates this drama. That's what creates a movie, a play. There's opposite arguments and different perspectives, different attitudes. And so, really look for that conflict, something juicy that you can really fight for, right? So that's the idea of objective. Now, personally, I believe it's not until we sort of look at ourselves that we can start really understanding these concepts. So think of your own objective. Like today, what is your objective today? Attending this workshop, attending the festival. What is your objective today? Perhaps it's to network. Perhaps it's to gain a better understanding of these foundational skills. So thinking about your own personal objective in your own life, in this moment, these short-term objectives, that can help you to understand where a character is coming from. After all, we have to be willing to go on the character's journey, and we're all capable because we're all human. So the next one I want to turn to is obstacle. Obstacle. Now, of course, as we know in life, life is not easy. It's not fair, right? There's hurdles, there's obstacles, there's things we have to navigate in order to reach our objective. You know, if it was easy, we would all do it, right? So it's something we have to navigate. So it's important for us as actors to find these obstacles. What is the obstacles in the scene? Why can I get my objective? And I'm going to read what I have here for obstacle. The obstacle is a person or thing that is stopping the character from obtaining the objective and therefore super objective. It's a hurdle. So we have to find a way around it, right? So naming clearly, what is your obstacle in this monologue? What is your obstacle in the scene, right? You can state the obstacle that is standing in your way from obtaining what you need as the following example. Okay, so look at these examples here. I can't blank because of blank. I can't eat in peace because Jack keeps staring at me, right? I can't marry him because he is engaged to someone else. I can't go out because I don't have a car. So those are examples of obstacles, right? So it's important to, you know, find your obstacles just as much as objective. Now, once again, some of you may know this information, but I think it's always important to go back to the fundamentals. Never take it for granted. Even when you're making millions of dollars, you always want to go back to these fundamentals because it's your foundation. We can only go up from here, but we can't take it for granted or else the rest of the work will suffer. Okay, so I have need here as the next one, just to sort of reiterate that the objective needs to be high stake. It needs to be important. So I'm saying it's important to see the objective as a need, not just something you casually want, not just something you could maybe live without, but I guess I'm gonna try to go after it. No, you need it. And in fact, you can't live without it in the scene, right? So let me tell you a secret. Plays aren't happening at people's most boring moments. It's happening at the most exciting moment of your life. That's why the play is written. If you watch any movie, it's usually some action involved. It's usually a major decision happening or a major turn in one's life happening. So the stakes are always high. And, you know, that's why we have a play. That's why we have a movie. That's why we have television. So, you know, it's important to start with high stakes when it comes to objective. So a need is something a person must obtain in order to remain whole: food, water, and shelter. Because plays are usually written about individuals in extraordinary or desperate circumstances, it is best to classify your objective as a need. Okay, so let's move on to super objective or life objective. Now it's pretty similar to, you know, objective, but it's long-term, right? It's long-term. Just like you've all had the objective to finish high school. That's a long-term objective, to finish high school and, you know, to finish with good grades. So, you know, this is something you're sort of gradually working towards. And just like we do in life, so does the character have these life objective, these super objective. It is the ultimate end goal, also known as the life objective. Every action a person takes is influenced by their super objective. You will better understand the importance of the super objective by writing down your own personal objective. Technically, a character's life objective will be found by reading the entire play and writing down the character's goal for every scene. All of this information can be used to identify precisely what are the character's ultimate agendas. Now, the secret here is that it takes time. It takes time to go through the entire play, read the entire play, and, fully understand the character, reading the entire play. And as you read through the scenes, you're writing down, oh, my objective for this scene may be this, my objective for this scene may be that. And you figure out what the character is working towards throughout the journey, throughout the odyssey of the entire play. So, it takes time. And often that is the secret for all of this, is time and investment into the fundamentals, making sure your foundation is solid. Okay, so a couple examples of super objective. So it can be written similar to objective. I want blank, 3 words. Keeping it simple. You don't have to do 3 words, but it can be. All right, so one example I want to be the next president of the United States. So that's a super objective, right? There's a lot of different things I would do in preparation for that. I would go for local office, then state, then, US senator, and then, president. So that's an example of like the journey toward a super objective. Another example, I want to liberate my people. I want to end the family curse. I want to be king. Remember, a super objective is usually a massive goal that cannot be obtained in one scene or act alone. It will usually take the entire play, much like it takes a really long time for us to personally obtain our own super objectives. So just having an understanding of the super objective, we have to see it as it's a direction this character is going on their journey. Okay, right now I want revenge, and revenge will help me reach this long-term goal, right? So just playing around with that, it's a sense of direction. Where are we going in this play? So just understanding that. Now, with classical work, what I firmly believe in classical work, as I stated at the top, is that we have to bring ourselves to this work. How you act in real life, your mannerisms, your native language, even the slang you have, you can bring that to classical work. And it's important to know that this work is not far from you. You just have to go to Shakespeare, or you just have to go to Moliere, or you just have to go to Bernard Shaw, or you just have to go to any of the Greek playwrights, or anything you might consider a archaic classical text, because right now there's no solid thing, no solid canon that's considered the classic, or it's the only thing that is classic above anything else. So I believe the discussion for what is classical theater, what is classical work, what is classical text, we're still digging into that, right? And it's going to be up to you and the rest of us to figure out what that is. And the conversation continues. Maybe we just make subtle contributions to what is classical theater, classical work. So just keep that in mind. But overall, what I want you to focus on is that you can go to the playwright. You can collaborate with the playwright. But in doing so, you cannot censor yourself. And so these tools, everything I just went over in terms of, the objective, super objective, and, all the other things like needs and whatnot, that is just to help you bring yourself to this work. And so is paraphrase. I feel like for me, paraphrase was a massive opening into understanding, work that seemed very far away, particularly Shakespeare. And I think you can have a lot of fun with the paraphrase. So the paraphrase, it's important to put it into your own words. It's putting text, classical text, into your own words. You can also see it as, your paraphrase as the internal monologue. What do you actually mean to say? Because once you find clarity with what you're actually trying to say, then your voice will change in the reading of this text. We'll hear a certain expression that's more closer to you. Now, one thing to note is the first couple times you do the paraphrase, it may be wrong. Or it may not be as accurate as what you will eventually end up with. So, just know, like, the paraphrase doesn't stop with the first try. You're just finding clarity of what you're trying to say, right? So the paraphrase / internal monologue, the actor writes in his or her own words what the character is saying with a line of dialogue. This technique reveals the inner thought process of the character, of what the character is really saying. The paraphrase should be in the actor's own words. All right, so I give an example of this. So I'm going to read a piece of text, and just a part of it from Hamlet, his advice to the players, Act 2, Scene 2. Okay, so Hamlet says, "Speak the speech, I pray you, as I pronounced it to you, trippingly on the tongue. But if you mouth it, as many of your players do, I had as lief the town crier spoke my lines. Nor do not saw the air too much with your hands thus, but use all gently. For in the very torrent tempest, and as I may say, the whirlwind of passion, you must acquire and beget a temperance that may give it smoothness." Now, what do you think that means? What do you think Hamlet is saying to the actors who would have been known as players, right? What do you think Hamlet is saying? So it's a little tricky, it's classical text. We don't speak this way, right? So I'm paraphrasing this. Now, how I start the paraphrase is I look up every word. You can look up these words and as you Google some of them, or if you ever have access to an Oxford English dictionary, you'll find that a lot of these words are archaic, but you'll find definitions. And that can help you paraphrase, like, oh, he means this. Oh, this is what he really means right there, right? So using all your resources you have to really break it down, right? All right, so this is what I have as an example, and this is my example. The most important thing is this paraphrase should be unique to you. There's no one way to do anything. You're bringing your voice to it. We don't all play Hamlet the same. There's millions of different ways to play every character, and your voice is just as unique. So don't take my paraphrase as the way or the right way or whatever. This is my example, right? Okay, so this is what I have. "Just spit it out, for heaven's sake, exactly how I showed you. Don't say the lines too slow. However, if you yell it, like many young actors tend to do, the king might think we are at the WWE Royal Rumble. Oh, and by the way, don't overact with your body, but be subtle in your acting. Even in the most extreme situations, you must perform with control and ease," right? Okay, so that's my example of the paraphrase of Hamlet's advice to the players. So as you can see, there's a bit of an attitude there. I made it, I I really like paraphrased it in such a way of just making it easier for me to understand, and using contemporary examples like the WWE Royal Rumble and things like that. So you want to bring it closer to you by paraphrasing and breaking down the text. And you can start doing that by looking up the words, just simply looking up the words and, piecing together, what it is. And then also knowing who you're talking to, what is their status. Are you like higher status than the folks you're talking to? Because that's a big thing when it comes to Shakespeare. Are you higher status and the folks you're talking to is lower status? Are you lower status and the person you're talking to is higher status? So that's gonna influence. Another thing with this paraphrase is to ask, why these words now? Why, out of all the words one could have used, these particular words were chosen? Now, what's interesting about Shakespeare, this playwright, Shakespeare sort of created his own words in order to express what he wanted to express. And so you want to keep that in mind. So why these words now? Why this particular order? And that may have an impact on the internal monologue or paraphrase with what you're trying to express. But just know, just like we as people have attitudes, we have a perspective on the world, so does these characters. And we want to bring it all, we want to bring our contemporary expressions to this classical work. And in fact, that's how this work survives. It's when we're able to bring ourselves to it because we can relate. And this is complex work. So, yeah, I get really excited about this. So let's continue to move along. Okay, next up I have here is tactic. Now, if any of you watch basketball or football or any sport, you might be familiar with a touchdown or, scoring a basket, field goal. So like just understanding that it's much like a sport. There is the goal. You're trying to score the goal, which is your objective. The objective is the touchdown, right? But the other team, meaning your scene partner, has hurdles, has defense. They're not going to let you score your touchdown, right? So you have to plan your attack. So like, okay, I'm going to go on this side. Oh, that's not working. I need to do it a different way. Oh, that's not working. Let me try to go over. Oh, that's not working. Let me try to go a different way. So you have different tactics in trying to reach your goal. So that's really what this is about. If you think about the word actor, actor, A-C-T-O-R, actor, it kind of, resembles action. So we play actions, and that's essentially what tactics is. It's actions, right? So I'll read my definition here. A tactic is a single verb. It is what a character actually does in order to obtain their personal objective. Exactly how the personal objective is influenced by the super objective, the tactic is directly influenced by the personal objective. So I'm going to try different tactics throughout my monologue in order to get what I want, right? So I'll read some examples, but to fully understand this technique, the actor must not ask, what am I feeling? But the actor must constantly ask, what am I doing in order to get what I want? So just repeat that. What am I doing in order to get what I want? Not what I'm feeling. No, what am I actually doing? Because I need to do something, right? In order to pass, I need to study. In order to make it to class, I actually need to drive on the road. So we need to do stuff in order to reach our objective, right? So what am I doing? Okay, so I want revenge. What am I doing to get revenge? So thinking about that, actions. So, and it should be super simple. So when you have your piece of text in front of you, your monologue in front of you, you would write your action next to each line. Because if you're talking past the first sentence, that means you didn't get what you wanted in that first sentence, right? So here's some examples of tactics. All right, so to blank, to grab. Okay, so if you have the first line of text and your tactic is to grab, okay, so speak the speech, I pray you. So I'm grabbing you with that text. However I choose to grab you, whether it's, metaphorically with my words or physically actually grabbing you, that's my tactic in order to get revenge, right? Speak the speech, I pray you. Okay, that didn't work. And so I continue talking, trippingly on the tongue. So you continue talking because you didn't get what you wanted. We thought grabbing our scene partner would help us get our objective, but it didn't work. So we need to go back to the drawing board. We need to go back and try something else. Okay, so to charm. So you keep on talking. Your next line is to charm. That didn't work. And so you go back to the board and try something else. You keep on talking, but that action is to subdue, right? And so on, to manipulate, to con, to ambush. And notice that all of these are very provocative. That means it's very like involved. It's very engaged, and you're going after something, and you're actually really trying to impact your scene partner in a way. So just keep this in mind, that if you do this kind of work, going through the text and finding your actions with each text, it's going to start to shape your performance into something a bit dynamic, right? So just keep that in mind. Now, I understand this is a lot of technical work, and so it's okay if you don't understand this right away. What's important is that you're just taking it in. You're just listening and taking it in. And, in due time, you'll start to understand this, but don't feel the pressure to fully grasp what all of this means right now. But just sort of take in what you can. Okay, so this is tactic, knowing that this is tactics is what's going to help us to get our objective. Okay, let's move on to beats. Beats. So beats, beats is a change in thought, idea, or situation in the scene. This is usually signifies a change in action by a character or someone new entering the scene. For example, a character is talking about watching the sunset, but somehow it reminds him of home. Or now he, she, they is talking about missing home and all the aspects of home. The subject changed, and so did the beat. Or two employees are fighting over who gets the last cupcake until the boss walks into the break room. This is a beat change because now it's different. It's a different situation now, that a third person who has power is now in the room. So, I believe we've all had like some sort of experience of, having a conversation, whether it's, an intimate conversation or something we're just joking about, and then somebody else walks in that is completely outside of this conversation. They walk in, and then the room gets quiet. So that's a beat change. because we've all changed. Someone entered the room. So it's a change of thought. And what I want you to think of a beat change as, so take this example. Okay, I'm going to see a show today and I'm going to watch a movie. Oh, someone's knocking on my door. So, the example is I'm talking about I'm going to watch a movie, I'm going to the theater today, but then someone knocks on my door and I shift. So that's subtle shift, going from this to this, seeing what's happening at the door. That's a beat change. So it can be subtle, it can be large, it can be something as simple as talking about popcorn, but then somebody opens the door and you stands up, right? So that's a beat change. So notice where your beat changes happen. Now, with the beat changes, think of that word, beat. It's a rhythm, right? It's a rhythm. So find the rhythms of your monologue. Okay, so this one thought in the first in the first amount of text in your monologue, it's one rhythm. Okay, we're very vulnerable. We're at ease, we're relaxed, but also we're open in this first chunk. But then the subject change, and now there's a different vibe of the monologue. So now we're a little bit on edge, we're a little uneasy, and a little rough and quick in our responses, right? And then the subject changes again, and now we're back to a sort of easiness, maybe ready to go out and have fun and whatnot. So the point is, find your beats, find your rhythm. The rhythm changes, and you've all experienced this in your household, how the rhythm changes, just talking to family members and, friends and whatnot. So it's important to recognize those beat changes. For every time the thought changes, draw a line across the page in your script. That way, I somehow need to physically change, vocally change, and, just know that something is happening to the character, right? Okay, and this last one I have here is the given circumstances. This is the particulars of the past, present, and future situations of the specific day that ultimately affects the personal behavior of a character. What is the given circumstances? So everyone just sort of take a moment, think about your given circumstance, and you don't have to say this aloud or anything, but, just think about your given circumstance. I'll give an example. My given circumstance. I have a brown leather chair behind me. I'm sitting next to a wall. I have a lamp light in front of me. I'm giving a class on Zoom. I'm sitting down in a chair. I wear glasses. And it's cold outside. So that's my version of the given circumstance. It's the particulars of this, and then also the things that have happened later on, earlier on in the day, and the things that are coming up later on, right? So it's all of those things that impacts your current behavior. It's the given circumstances. And it's important to not underestimate it, because it's going to influence how you move. It's going to influence your attitude and perspective. So things like that. So these are the fundamental principles that, I sort of want to, focus on and let us not take for granted in this kind of work. This is something you'll always come back to. I think it's very important for Shakespeare. So there's some other things that I want to mention, that's also important for like classical text, but also in Shakespeare. But anything you do this kind of work, the fundamentals we have just gone over, it'll make contemporary plays seem like a piece of cake. I promise you, you stay true to these fundamental principles. But as I mentioned, there's a couple things I want to go over as well before we move on to our monologue, which is, the magic O, the magic O. So sometimes in Shakespeare, sometimes in, other classical plays, there is an expression that does not have consonants, but it's just a large vowel. And in Shakespeare, sometimes that would come off as the word O, right? And we call it the magic O. Now, in this moment, when we cross like something like this in Shakespeare or any text, this is something where something magnificent, a great emotion, wave of something is happening to the character that they have no words to express, and it just comes out. Now it's up to you to figure out what that expression is. That can be oh, it can be ooh, it can be ah, it can be like ha. It can be different things. It can just be a breath. It can be different things. And you have the choice to choose how you want to express that. But it's a magical, and it's important that it's fully supported. It's a profound experience that the character is going through. It does not have to be slow. It does not have to be quick. It can be whatever you need it to be in that moment, right? Another thing I want to point our focus on is, and let me stop my screen share. Sorry, I get caught up. Another thing I want to focus on is imagery. Now, in classical work, imagery is very important. Imagery, you're often visualizing these powerful images happening to the character. And we're going to see that in the monologue in a bit. But, when it comes to these images, it's important not to take them for granted. You have to really paint that picture and take time to do the work of what does it look like to look upon the balcony where Juliet is currently at, looking at the stars. What is it like to be madly in love and see the person you love, the person you care about the most? Those are powerful images. And it's something that you have to either draw out, spend time just doing that imagery work, investigating what the imagery even is, because sometimes they can be complicated in Shakespeare. So yeah, I just want to point our attention to that, and you'll see it in the monologue once again. Something else is love. Love is, a powerful tool. Love in classical work, but also in any kind of work. I mostly discovered this in Shakespeare, is that love is more like a disease. It's more of like the characters, when they're in love, they have to have it. It's a cure. They're in love, that's my disease. And the only way I can cure this kind of love is if I get the person that I want, right? The person I need. So it's best to see love. Anytime love is involved, it's a great disease, and I need to be cured. And that cure is Juliet. That cure is whoever, whoever is the desired person. And you'll see the stakes rise, and you'll see a kind of truth arise out of this character, because these characters aren't thinking. They're sort of speaking from the heart, and so it's important, to speak from the heart, but it's also rapid, it's rapid. So it's not so sing-songy, right? So it's to keep that in mind. So two more things before we move to the monologue. Reversal. So often characters will hear something and it's like there's an element of wit involved. You'll hear something and you already know your response, before it's time, like because there's a certain thing you listen to that sparks an idea, and you're already taking that deep breath in and ready to go in with your response. But see your response as a reversal of the other person's, because remember, this is a game and you want something from the other person. And in order for you to get that something, they cannot win. You have to win as the character, right? So you need a reverse, you need to spin one's logic, you need to take their logic, spin it and make it your own logic and double down on it, right? Now I know that's like a little complicated to fully grasp, but that's okay. But it's just understanding that there's wit involved, and there's, these characters, they listen to certain things that said, certain words that said, and they take that and use it against their opponent to their advantage, right? So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, and really quickly, what I want to go over is scansion. Now, we don't have time to go over all the form of scansion. There's so many different forms of scansion, so I'm gonna just go over the most used form of scansion, which is iambic pentameter. It's one of the many variations of meters involved. And yeah, let me share my screen to sort of review what this is. Okay, all right, so I believe you all can see this. All right, so when you look at certain classical texts, you'll often find that they're, just physically looking at the text, they look different, like they can look different. Some look like actual paragraphs, physically just looking, they fill the whole page like paragraphs, how we write them today, they go straight across. And then some look like they're written in poetry, some look like actual poetry, right? Well, there's the one that looks like actual poetry, that's verse. Often there's a rhythm, there's a rhyme scheme sometimes. And yeah, it has a form of meter to it. Now the other one, where the words just sort of go across the page, and it's more like it's more less of a rhythm, or has a different kind of rhythm. It's more relaxed, and there's no sort of like rhyme scheme necessary with the text. That's called prose, and it's actually what we still use today. Now, the thing with Shakespeare is Shakespeare perfected the meter, perfected iambic pentameter. Now, other playwrights have used, verse and prose and whatnot. They have used it in their own plays, but Shakespeare perfected it. And as I said, he has written his own words to find clarity with his plays and whatnot. So let's focus on iambic pentameter, the breakdown of that. Okay, so I'm just going to read some of these. All right, so iambic breakdown. The foot Shakespeare used predominantly is called an iamb. An iambic foot has two syllables, with the first syllable unstressed, unaccented, and then the second stressed / accented. Da-dum, right? Da-dum. So da is unstressed, dumb, stressed, right? Da-dum. Okay, so you can sort of refer to these keys, so you can understand like what is the rhythm, right? So we have a weak rhythm and then a strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, the dumb, right? All right, so when you string five iambs together the way Shakespeare often did, you've created a type of meter called iambic pentameter. All right, so often in Shakespeare, not all of Shakespeare, but very often, you'll find the iambic pentameter, which is 5 meters, right? So 1 meter is the dum, right? It's 2 syllables, the dum, right? So that's one meter. And so we'll have 5 of those to make an iambic pentameter. Did dum, did dum, did dum, did dum, did dum, right? So we have that. So let's get an example of this in actual words. Vacation's over and I've gained 10 pounds. Tonight, I'll see my love tonight. But soft what light through yonder window breaks, right? So that's an example of it. Now, as I mentioned before, Shakespeare has different variations of the iambic pentameter, and then also different variations of this meter. Sometimes it starts with the strong syllable, dum da, dum da, dum da, dum da, which is a trochee. And so there's different variations of that. And usually when it's the opposite, that means something weird is happening. The environment is not normal. And we get a bit of that in the Scottish plays and different things. And it's really fascinating when we see the meter change, because now we notice, something strange is happening. Um, so just keep that in mind with classical work. There is a rhythm thing. Now, the one of the thing is, do not get hung up on it. It's important. It's one of the first things you want to look at. You want to get it right. When beginning to look at your text, and if you skip it, you certainly will always have to go back to it. But the point is, do not get caught up on it. All of this is meant to support your voice and how you want to express yourself as an artist. What you want to bring to this role? What is your spin? What is your take? So just keep that in mind with all of these technical things. Okay, so now let's sort of have a look at a monologue. And I want you to just sort of, play around with this, like just looking at the text. There's no pressure, no stakes, it's extremely low stakes, and just see if you can find this meter. And then also, play around with some of the things we covered in terms of objective, like what does Romeo want in this text? And I'm going to share the screen right now, but like playing around with the character's objective in this scene, like what does Romeo want? So we're looking at this Romeo balcony scene right here, looking at Juliet. So yeah, just take a moment, think about, what does he want? How might he get what he wants? Like what tactics might he do in order to reach Juliet and communicate what he wants? Like maybe notice what kind of scansion is involved with this text, right? Uh, yeah, and just take a moment, have a look at this, and I'll turn my camera off for a couple minutes and I'll be back. All right. Okay, so I hope you had a little time to sort of, discuss what might be the objective Romeo has in the scene, what the scansion might be, what tactics one might have. So, the point of all this work is sort of for you to bring yourself to it. You have to decide what all these things is, but these are the fundamentals. So you're bringing in all of this work, having paraphrased it, having like chosen, what are your tactics, your objective, and things like that. Something I will also note is that there are operative words. When it comes to Shakespeare, we want to look for operative words, which, very often will be sort of verbs. We want to punch the verbs. So those are the most important words in each sentence. So we want to really focus on those things too, and that's how we really communicate what we're trying to communicate. All right, so I'm going to give it a go at this Romeo monologue here. And I think that'll be a wrap for us afterwards. But yeah, let's give it a go and see how to navigate this monologue, right? Knowing everything we've learned so far in terms of the fundamentals of this kind of work, right? Okay. He jests at scars that never felt a wound. But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who is already sick and pale with grief that thou, her maid, art far more fair than she. But not her maid, since she is envious. Her vestal livery is but sick and green, and none but fools do wear it. Cast it off. It is my lady. Oh, it is my love. Oh, that she knew she were. She speaks, yet she says nothing. What of that? Her eye discourses. I will answer it. I am too bold. 'Tis not to me she speaks. Two of the fairest stars in all the heaven, having some business, do entreat her eyes to twinkle in their spheres till they return. What if her eyes were there and they in her head? The brightness of her cheek would shame those stars, as daylight doth a lamp. Her eyes in heaven would through the airy region stream so bright that birds would sing and think it were not night. See how she leans her cheek upon her hand? Oh, that I were a glove upon that hand, that I might touch that cheek. Okay. All right, so that's my sort of go at it with this Romeo monologue. So there's lots of fun things, and as you can see, the more you dig into the fundamentals, the more you'll discover, and the more dynamic this monologue gets, and it eventually becomes unpredictable, and it becomes very unique to you. Now, of course, there's a lot of things that we still like have to cover in terms of moving ahead. There's plenty of things like parentheticals, going further into understanding scansion, understanding, how are we changing, and then like the physical aspect of becoming a character. So there's always more work to be done. But I think these fundamental principles here is a great entry into classical work, and the rest will fall into place. I promise you, the rest will fall into place. So one thing is just understand that with every moment, it's important to honor every moment when it comes to acting and when it comes to your life in general. I always say, respect every moment. So when it's time to rest 100%. When it's time to work, work as best as you can. But, it's important to know that you are enough. This work was meant for you. This work is not far from you, and you are capable. Just trust these fundamentals of acting, and I believe everything will fall into place. Thank you for having me here for this workshop. I'm very honored, and I hope to see you soon. Okay, take care. Thank you.